time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to foot.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? A pleasant good evening to you all. Welcome to the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here with Russell Dobular once again.
Hello.
All right, we have a very special program in store for you all tonight. We have a very special guest who we're going to introduce in just a moment. Just a program note here before we did. Merkin, any way to get this show on Rumble? Yeah, this is actually streaming on Rumble, but it's not streaming to the correct place. Unfortunately, Rumble does not let us schedule live streams a few days in advance. You have to schedule it within 24 hours. So I did it yesterday, but I think I accidentally did it to the incorrect channel. But don't worry, it will upload to Rumble after the show ends. So this will be available on Rumble soon. I apologize on that. That was my bad, as they say. We have a very special guest who we are going to introduce in just a moment. We asked Buck before the show if he would be willing to take questions, and he was very gracious to say yes, of course. So you guys can submit questions to Buck throughout the show. We will not discriminate based on whether or not they are super chats, but obviously, given how fast the chat moves, the super chat makes the bright color. It's a lot easier for us to see. So you're more likely to get that question answered if you put a buck or two on it and help keep the show going. As Russell mentioned in the last show, if anybody wants to be an asshole and ask an insulting question or anything like that, we will keep the money and not read the question. In fact, we won't keep the money. We'll donate the super chat to the Ron DeSantis 2024 campaign. How's that? So if anybody wants to be a wise ass, that's where the money will go. All right. But if you want to ask a question, even if you disagree, Buck has proven time and again he's willing to disagree with people, but just be cool, as they say. All right. So we're going to start this interview right now. As they say, I've already given an introduction, but he is an entrepreneur, a host of his own YouTube show, Buck Angel, and a trans advocate for more than 30 years. It is our pleasure to introduce, of course, Buck Angel to the show. Buck, thank you so much for joining us. Nice to meet you.
Right on, guys.
Welcome, Buck.
Right on. Thanks for having me. I totally appreciate conversation. So it means a lot to me. Thank you.
Of course. Absolutely.
It means a lot to us that you're here.
Right on.
Yeah, indeed. We've been looking to do a show on this topic for a while, and we thought we needed a guest, the right guest, to talk this through with us. And so thank you, obviously, so much for making time for us. I want to start by just letting you introduce yourself and talking a little bit about how you got into this space as an educator and a trans advocate yourself. You talk about how you started your life as a tomboy, then you worked in the porn industry for a while, and now you are, like I said, an advocate. You're a host of your own show. You do a lot of advocacy work, a lot of education work. So talk about how you got here and introduce yourself to the audience, please.
All right, right on. So again, thanks a lot, you guys. I appreciate it. And so my name is Buck Angel. I basically born female and transitioned to live as a man 30 years ago. And I started, I guess, my work in pornography on some level, and I created the genre. Woo, my mom is so happy. I created the genre of trans male pornography. Again, that's adult entertainment. It's not for children. It's for adults. And from there,
we have a clip right here. Let's show.
You want to lose your YouTube channel?
Right, exactly.
Well, you know, Keaton is a big Seinfeld fan. I did notice you did a buck naked
film.
I sure did. One of the best things about it is creating the titles for the movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did that, and then from there, I kind of started becoming known in the world, and I started traveling the world speaking about my transition from female to male. And on some level, an educator, and then on some level, an activist, where I don't use that label anymore because I do feel that it's been taken over in not a positive way. And I started just really traveling the world talking about my transition, and it was amazing. And I went to every university across the world, and so much amazing love and acceptance, and then from there, I started creating products for trans men and what one would call sex toys, but I like to say wellness toys and things like that to help us sort of move through our unique bodies. And then the world got crazy. And then the trans community, I use that lightly, got a little bit nuts, and I sort of backed out of that. And I'm still, I create products. That's kind of more what I do. And I push back. Now I'm not an activist. I would say what am I? I don't want to use the word activist. I think I'm just an outspoken person on some level.
Yeah, well, that's why when I labeled the show, I said you were more an advocate than an activist at this point.
Right on.
And I think that's
Yeah.
a better term to use,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
totally.
I think that more accurately describes what you do, and especially because the sort of trans activist community, which you've actually talked about, is not represented all that much by trans people themselves. Obviously, that was a question that I have for you, but I want to save it for a little while later. So I'll toss to Russell.
Great.
All right, so you started to get into this a little bit, and I want to make it clear that until 10 minutes ago, you were a hero in that space. You were interviewed for Dan Savage's It Gets Better
actually,
series.
16 minutes and 59 seconds ago.
Right.
So you were interviewed for the It Gets Better series aimed at LGBTQ kids. You've toured educating people about trans experiences. You were the first trans man treated with testosterone in LA.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You've been the subject of several documentaries.
Yep.
You've worked with the Annenberg Space for Photography, spreading awareness of trans people and issues. And yet now many trans activists consider you, quote, heteronormative or anti-trans.
Oh,
how did that happen? How did that happen?
I'll tell you how it happened. It's not a real trans community. That's how it happened. They don't want me around because I'm real. And I say things that go against everything they say because we've been hijacked. I'll say it again and again. We've been hijacked. We've been appropriated, that those people are not the same as me. And they created a new sort of trans space that has nothing to do with what transsexualism is. And if you all notice, I always call myself a transsexual. I do not call myself transgender. And that's because a transsexual person is myself. I had what we used to call, quote unquote, a sex change. Right? I didn't have a sex change because it's impossible to change your biology, but that's what we used to call it. And it's somebody who was diagnosed with gender dysphoria, which I have a diagnosis. I went through a whole system. It wasn't easy. You couldn't just go on the internet and get testosterone when I did it. You had to go to a doctor and a therapist. And it was like a sort of a system, which is what I call a safe system. And so, but today you just can go on the internet and 20 minutes get testosterone. So they don't like that I am different, and I kind of put it in a different perspective, and I say I have gender dysphoria, and they say you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans. I go, then what are you? You're not trans. If you don't have gender dysphoria, you're something else. And that's when it sort of got weird with me and them.
All right, that was my next question. So did you want to ask the next one, Keaton?
Yeah, well, I mean, let me just go back to what I was saying earlier. Because you've talked about, like, it's interesting. I remember on a conversation that you had a while back with a cisgendered woman who was giving you a hard time. I forget who it was. This was a while back, and I'm sure you don't remember exactly what I'm referencing because you've been on a million of these shows and stuff. But you said at one point that you're not even really interested in having these conversations anymore with non-trans people. That's kind of something that you said because you don't care what they think. Which leads me, folks, to a major announcement I have to make right now. No.
And mine is even more
What do you mean you're not trans?
But I found that really interesting. Can you speak to why? Because it seems to me like one of the things you take issue with that I mentioned earlier is the fact that a lot of the activist community that's taken this up as a cause is actually not trans themselves. There was a whole sort of skirmish in our online left YouTuber space where a host made a comment that was perceived as anti-trans, and all of her peers started piling on. And I noticed of all these people piling on her, none of them are actually trans themselves.
Right.
None of them are actually trans themselves. So like it's this like supposed allyship that a lot of woke liberals are obsessed with, and they feel like they're scoring points with a community without necessarily understanding whether that community appreciates their quote unquote help.
That's right. No, that's right. And so, you know, it's not that I want to sit, I need to sit here with you. It is important for me to talk to non-trans people. I think in that context, what I got tired of is non-trans people telling me that I'm not trans or calling me transphobic or telling me I'm wrong, right? Like what? Like, no, that conversation I won't have with you because you don't know where I'm coming from. You don't know my journey in this space. You don't know what I dealt with prior to my transition. Transsexual people do exist, whether you want to accept it or not. I'm standing right in front of you. But what I was trying to, I think, probably convey was I was tired of those allies, right? Fighting for my rights when they aren't fighting for my rights. They're actually taking my rights away on some level and over speaking me. It's like Black Lives Matter and having white people, you know, speak over Black people on some level. It's kind of weird and sit down and let the Black people take care of their stuff already. Same with us. We don't, you know, so, but I feel like the trans activist community is enable and pushing for more allyship because the more, right, there's power in numbers. I do believe that. And they're really just getting anybody and everybody to kind of get on board with them, whether or not they're trans or not.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Russell about this a couple of days ago. Russell and I are both Jewish guys who obviously, this is a left show. We criticize Israel a lot, the state of Israel, the government of Israel. And I noticed that whenever somebody criticizes the Israeli government, a bunch of people pile on them saying, how dare you criticize Israel? That's anti-Semitic. Almost none of the people who make that charge are actually Jews themselves. So as a Jew here, I'm saying, hey, you're not actually helping. You may think you're standing up for me, but you're not, because all you're doing is perpetuating this sort of false stereotype that all Jews support Israel. Right. And so it's kind of a similar thing. I think
it's not true. You know, my partner's Jewish. I'm not raised Jewish, but, you know, I'm converting actually. But that being said, I completely get it. You know, my mother-in-law is full on pro-Israel and I'm not. So we'd get into it all the time, but that's okay. I don't have an issue with that. You know, we get to have these conversations and I learn from her and she learns from me. I'm not the guy who sits down, just so you know. I'm not the guy who's not willing to have that conversation. And I'm not also willing to get my feelings hurt on some level. That's how you kind of move forward and grow, is by having difficult conversations.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you thought becoming a man was hard, wait till you try becoming Jewish.
Oh no, dude, I'm in there. Trust me,
man.
I'm in there.
Yeah.
I knew one of us was going to come up with a clippable line that was going to get us canceled. I just didn't think it was going to be you.
Right on.
Try getting into our club.
Really, she's making you convert, huh?
Well, she's not making me. I'm actually doing it on my own. I'll tell you why, because we also have a son and, you know, he goes to a Jewish school. And I just feel like I want to be that part of his life. And there's part of Judaism that I really like. I do. You know, I'm kind of a very more spiritual type space. And it feels on some levels very, very in line with Buddhism on some level. If you can really look and see, you were raised Jewish, so it's different than somebody like me who's coming in and seeing it from a different light. Yeah.
Right. You're like the trans Sammy Davis.
That's right. I totally am. That's hilarious. I'm the tranny Jewish person. Brilliant.
Yeah, they kicked me out of Hebrew school when I was 9.
I bet they did.
I was a little much for them. All right, so to take a kind of a darker turn. All right, so we want to take a look at that first article. So this is Michael Schellenberger just dropped an article about how there is not actually a trans genocide, something that you've spoken about. So I'm going to read a little from this. For years, transgender activists have claimed there is a genocide being waged against transgender people. As evidence, they point to the murders of trans victims. In 2022, at least 32 transgender and gender nonconforming people were killed in the United States, according to the Human Rights Campaign. But 32 trans killings is a decline from 40 in 2020 and 59 in 2021. And researchers do not know if trans people are being killed disproportionately compared to non-trans people. There remains a prejudice against trans people. Some trans people are without question victims of violence, but there is no genocide, nor even strong evidence that the trans people being killed are targeted for being transgender rather than for some other reason. For example, transgender people are disproportionately represented in the sex trade, which is an extremely dangerous criminal enterprise. So now you've spoken out about this. You reject the premise that there's a genocide against trans people happening. What impact does this exaggerated and apocalyptic language have on the debate of trans issues?
Well, it shuts the debate down. And what debate? Tell me what debate there is, because I'd like to join it. They won't let you debate. They will not let you debate. So these are all this is all gaslighting. I mean, come on, man. It's all of it, right? They shut you down. So now genocide. Oh, that's why I wrote that on Twitter. I'm like, there is no in capital.
Yeah, I saw that recently.
How dare you? How dare you first off use that word? And why don't you go look it up and see what it actually means, right? And really, really understand what a genocide is and how many cultures and people had to deal with genocide. I find it very offensive on some level that we're like just using that word so flippant and so, as easily as that. No, trans people are not being, there is no suicidal, genocide happening. There's none of that happening. It's not. And you just proved it right there. So I find it offensive on some level that now we're trying to trick people. This whole trans activist narrative is tricking people. It's not honest. It's deceitful. It's bully behavior. It's terrorism on some level. It's militant. And it has nothing to do with, I have a disorder, people. I have a mental disorder, okay? It's not funny, but it's like done. It's here. I have it. It's no big deal, right? It's like any kind of disorder. You hope to fix it. And I did fix it. And I have a beautiful, amazing life. And I've had a beautiful, amazing life since my transition. And so when I start to see these narratives coming from these people in this community, it's hurtful and it's wrong. And it gives the wrong message to the world out there. And people are starting to get tired of it. And so what's happening now is we're rolling back in our rights. And that's because people don't like to be lied to and people don't like to be deceived. And that's what's happening.
You've also, I've seen you say, it was a very interesting point I had never thought of. We don't allow people to self-diagnose their condition in any other area. Why are we allowing people to diagnose themselves with gender dysphoria?
Great. I mean, can you even imagine? Oh, I have cancer. I mean, really, it's actually like that because this is a medicalized space. It's always been a medicalized space. It's never been anyone can be trans. That just happened in the last 5 or 10 years. And I always question these people. Why would anyone want to be trans? Now, I've said it. I have a great life. Everything is good. But I don't want to be this. I want to be you guys. I wish I was born a dude. But I have to literally work at this every day. And I have to shoot testosterone. And I have to get, surgeries and I have to do these things. And I'm always living with this in my head. It is not fun. So when this idea is kind of given to a young generation, here, you can be this and everything will be, what are you doing? This is not a space you want somebody. When I transitioned, the whole point of my therapy was to get me out of this dysphoria. It wasn't to keep me in this dysphoria. And it wasn't to just say, okay, stamp of approval, you're trans is what they're doing today. It was, with any kind of medical condition, you're hoping to sort of cure it or to move forward. Medicalization should be the last resort. It should never be the first thing you do to somebody. So you try things and move through them. They're not doing that now. And that has my mind going, wait a minute, why are we pushing this on a young generation? And why do we want so many people to be trans? It's bizarre behavior.
Well, the thing that you mentioned, you've said in the past that I'm obviously don't have a direct quote here, but that you transition not to basically stand out from society, but rather to sort of integrate into it. And I think that just as an idea, is a very powerful thing. You did this in order to feel comfortable enough in your own skin, in your own body, in your own space, to be, a very happy and productive and fulfilled person. And when it seems like movements that embrace that just embrace a sort of integration into what the norms are, they tend to be successful. I think that's why gay marriage was one, because gay people were like, listen, we don't want to be perceived as this deviant lifestyle, this other thing that's a thumb in the eye of any sort of cultural norm. No, we want to do what a lot of people want to do, which is get married. We want to participate in the American way of life, right? We want to actually join the broader society. And it seems now with the more militant activism, that perhaps there is another goal, or it's going to a place where they are sort of insisting not just that they have certain rights to be where they want, but that cis women don't have rights to preserve spaces for themselves. So what that does is it goes a step beyond integrating into the society, and that's when rights start to get pulled back, right? That's why a lot of the backlash, that's why you see a lot of anti-trans legislation coming down the pike now, because the goal of the movement is not what most people find very, very reasonable, which is that, of course, trans people deserve all the rights that everybody else has, right? As long as it's kept fundamental in that way, it's very hard to defeat. When you go beyond that, it becomes very easy to defeat. And so now we're seeing this sort of receding of trans rights.
And it's inevitable when you start, first off, when you push an agenda, because now trans on some level is also an ideology. It really is. And it's some kind of thing that we have to start pushing. You better accept it. If you don't accept it, you're a transphobe. And what is that? You don't think I've gotten hate my whole life? Of course, prior to transitioning, I lived as a gay woman, a butch, a very masculine gay woman. That's a very hard space to live in, right? And so, I've gotten beat up left and physically beat up as well. But that being said, you maneuver, you find things. I mean, as Jewish people, you have to deal with nonsensical hate stuff, and you just find ways to move through the world. We all get hate from some space and whatever that means. But that being said, this new space, and I call it very militant, is telling you have to or else. What? No one's gonna just be like, okay, sure. They're gonna be like, what are you talking about? I don't agree. I went on a very kind of very right wing, hardcore, anti-everything talk show. And, I left there shaking hands with the guy, and I left there with him and understanding me more and understanding, I had a different opinion of people like you. Right. So I'm like, because I'm having the conversation, they don't want the conversation. That should be the first red flag for everyone. Why don't they want conversation?
Well, and that's why we talked about this a little off the air, because I've had people ask me, why am I so passionate about this? I told them I was fucking with Scientologists before it was cool. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why I have an instinctively negative reaction to telling me 2 + 2 = 5, and you have to accept it. Right. I don't like authoritarians. I don't like cults. Yeah. And exactly as you say, whenever people are afraid of conversation, it's a big red flag.
That's right.
And also something that I think maybe some of our younger people are too young to remember. I lived through the satanic panic. So when you tell me, well, look at the whole psychology industry, they all say that this is proper. I say, have you ever heard of recovered memory therapy? It was very similar, where you couldn't disagree with it. You couldn't argue with it. You weren't supporting people who had been sexually abused. If you challenged the premise, they got people to believe there's a network of child molesting Satanists in the suburbs. Oh, it sounds crazy, right? Well, that's what people are going to say about this.
That's right.
A lot sooner. How did so many people fall for this? It's probably going to end the same way. Lawsuits. That is how.
Oh my God, they're already starting.
They're already starting. Exactly.
They're already starting. I have a lot of detransitioner friends. Oh, that breaks my heart. I could cry right now. I'm not kidding. It's just horrifying, because it literally worked for me. It was the best thing that I ever did. And then I see these young people doing things they should never be doing. And it's not just putting a hat on, people. It's not just dressing up like a boy or a girl. They're doing surgeries. They're doing irreversible surgeries on these young people. Right. And that's where it's now we're having detransitioners who are actually getting lawyers, and I mean, Chloe Cole is suing Kaiser Hospital.
Yep.
Here it comes.
All right, Russ, before you get into the next question, I just want to say to the audience, because we're getting some super chats in as questions, in case you missed the top of the show, Buck will be taking those questions after we're done with the main interview portion. So we're not ignoring you, but just hang out and stick around. All right, go ahead.
All right, so we're gonna take a look at some video, but first I want to set it up a bit. So psychologist Sam Vaknin has said, the potential for aggression in victimhood movements is much larger than in the general population. Anything that is grievance-based leads to violence and death. The infiltration of narcissists and psychopaths is universal in all these victimhood movements, and they become the public face of the movement. So we talked a little bit offline about how one of the reasons I want to talk about this in a left space is I don't think a lot of people on the left have seen what I've seen, because it's not, they don't show it to them. They don't understand what the conversation is even about. So I put together a montage that includes the Riley Gaines footage, but also a lot of other footage that I think people who go to left spaces, even left alternative spaces, have not seen, because people in this space range from they're on board, they bend the knee to it, or they just avoid the topic because they don't want the grief. Nobody is talking about this in this space.
That's right.
So let's take a look at that video.
Great.
Oh, I got to ask you. Whoa. What's this about? Why are we doing this?
These are women who are protesting men being put in women's prisons.
Why are we doing this?
They're violent men. These are violent men. They're violent men, and they just had fun. Yeah, these are the men that we like to not have to be in prison with. So.
I'ma beat your ass. I'ma beat your ass. I'ma beat your ass. Yes, I will. These hands do not discriminate. These hands do not discriminate. I will.
Stop telling trans people that we're inspirational.
Stop telling kids to go on your Patreon and chat to you privately without their parents knowing.
I got an email saying, pretty much a threat, saying they know where I live. And what scares me the most is they have got my daughter's details on the email, like what time I leave to drop them to school, pick them up. As some of you might know that my car was damaged in this whole thing.
So I've had people, when I told people that you were going to be on, I had some people say, you picked the worst one.
Brilliant. That means I'm doing something right.
You picked the worst one. So who are these? The best ones? These are the best ones?
Yeah.
They're telling me, they're naming all of these people who are trans activists who I should bring on. You know, it's like I'm doing an episode about the Manson family and they're asking me why I didn't put Squeaky on.
So real, dude. Of course, I'm the hated guy because I'm sitting here telling you reality, not my reality. So that's why they don't. I told you that they want to shut me down. I'm not the good tranny. I'm the bad tranny.
the new film from the Coen brothers.
Right on.
So how do you feel as a trans person, as a trans pioneer, seeing your community represented by these people, most of whom are not trans. If
Yeah,
you look at
that's right.
all of those videos, very few of the people in those videos are trans. Very few.
Upsetting. I could cry. I'm not kidding. I'm a very sensitive man, as you can tell. I always want to cry these days. It's horrifying. It's actually horrifying. I cannot even believe it. It's why I sit here with you. It's why I've said I'm not shutting up anymore. It's why I talk about trans women being trans women and that they're biological men. And I don't care what you're telling me. These are biological men acting insane. If you want to be a woman, go ahead, dude, go ahead. No one cares. But why are you putting this weird, dangerous, militant space against women? I'm a biological woman. I will never, ever turn my back on women, ever. I fought for women's rights. I lived as a woman for half my life. What those people are doing has zero to do with trans anything. It has everything to do with some kind of crazy militant terrorist. We want to take over women's space. How come they're not doing this with men?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you have a guy like Matt Walsh who doesn't believe in an adult's right to transition.
Yeah.
He is actually very, very radically anti-trans in the sense that he's not just like not for children. He actually doesn't believe that trans people have the right to exist. He's actually one of these examples where, the most extreme example does represent what he thinks. He speaks at colleges all the time. They don't come for him. I mean, there is a strain of this that is anti-woman. And I think, the fact that a lot of people who chased down Riley Gaines did so because she, protested having to compete in a swimming contest against a biological male.
What did the guy yell? Let's take away her pride.
Her pride, right.
Disgusting.
So what I would have to...
Very blatantly misogynistic thought.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, because as we mentioned earlier, a lot of people in this space here who are doing that to Riley Gaines and some of the things in the videos that we just watched, they consider themselves these progressive, woke, quote unquote, allies. And so the question can very, very easily be flipped on its head and posed to them this way, in a way that I don't think they would ever answer, because they can't and maintain that sort of woke progressive cred, which is, do women who are born weaker and more vulnerable than men, do they not have the rights to preserve certain spaces for themselves? Now, I would love to hear somebody in this movement answer that question.
Yeah.
Because it's a question they can't say no to that. They can't say no. That's why the only answer must be this blanket, well, trans women are women, period. I don't want to hear it. I'm exhausted talking about it. That's the other thing. I don't owe it to you to educate you. Because they can't simply say no. Women don't have the right to preserve spaces for themselves, because that's what they actually think.
Right.
That is what they think. By definition, that's what they think.
It's a misogynist movement, and I say it every day. How dare you? How dare you? First off, as trans people, we have our own space, and we've always had our own space. And the whole point of transitioning was to coexist with you. It wasn't to take your space. I don't want to go and take over male space. Why would I want? I want to actually hang out with you, and I actually want to, be with you guys. And if I'm not honest about who I am, then it's just not going to be a real space. These people aren't being honest because they don't want to be honest. Number one, because they want you to believe these people are women, and that women is just a word, that it's not. That's what they're trying to do, this thing that biology is a social construct. What are you talking about? And why would you? To be trans, biology is part of the equation. You can't be trans without biology. And it's like, I don't even know what to say. I feel like I'm just going around in circles constantly with these people, because you cannot have a rational conversation. That again should be our red flag there. They're lying and they're deceitful. And the way they are smacking women in the face, and what they did to Riley Gaines is so insane. That was a breaking point for me. The way they're yelling, are you listening to what they're saying to her when they're screaming in that space? It's sick. And they scared the crap out of her, and they held her hostage in a room for like 3 hours. What?
Yeah, no, I mean, we covered that on last week's show, and, Russ has been meaning to delve into this issue for a long time, and I've been resisting precisely because I think that in most cases we need we need to find the worst trans person in the world to come and talk about it. So I'm glad we can't do this without the worst trans person on Earth.
Right.
We have to wait until we can find the worst trans person.
We
on
found
Earth.
the worst one.
But when we cover, but the Riley Gaines thing, I was like, no, we can cover this. Like, we don't need anybody here to cover this because this is obvious. It's just obvious.
It's obvious.
I mean, you chase somebody into a room, you hold her there for ransom. You talk about breaking her pride. I mean, it's the most obvious thing. Like, if you can't condemn that, then I mean, this is just the most basic thing.
That's right.
That there is. But you know, you have also spoken to your experience going through this. And one of the things that makes this an interesting topic to me when I hear you talk about it, because to be honest, as Russell was saying, he's more passionate about this issue than I am. This is not an issue that interests me very much, in the same sense that you seem to say in one of your recent streams that you don't wear your identity as a trans man on your sleeve either. You said, like, I don't walk into a coffee shop and show my trans card. Trans is back here. It's over here. It's not up here. It's not right. And so, you know, I think that's something that makes you particularly interesting, and you make this topic interesting for me when I hear you talk about it, because you're coming from a place where, once again, this process that you went through is a process of healing. It's a process of becoming a functional and happy person, which is what every person deserves the opportunity to be. And so there's a real sort of universality to your story, you know. And I feel like in so many of these movements, and it's not just the trans thing, but I think so much of the left is siloed off into causes that there is that we've lost sight of that sort of universal pursuit of fulfillment, right? As something that drives a political movement.
Well, so that one trope that they love to say, trans rights are human rights. Okay, well, yeah, but so is everybody else. I mean, the whole point of everything in this world is we're supposed to all try to live on this earth together, whether we agree or disagree. That should be the ultimate goal. We need to learn how to sort of walk the world together instead of having wars and killing people and slamming women's heads. And, you know, this is not, they're throwing not only trans rights, they're not only throwing trans rights backwards, they're throwing all of our rights backwards because they're shutting our voices down. Journalism is a joke. I mean, things they're not being told what's the truth. We're not being told what the truth is. So we have to create shows like these in order to actually put the truth into the world. And if you notice, I don't say my truth, which is a lot of what these people are saying. What is your truth? The truth is the truth. And we've been sort of like on some level, like what you say, Russell, and you're very into the cult space. And this is so, I mean, you have to see it, Russell, like you can't not. It's literally laid on top of cult tactics.
Yeah. And when you look at the press, and this is part of what we're doing here, I'm showing people who are left things they've never seen because nobody is telling them. We're going to get into Sweden. Most of them don't know. That countries far to our left have banned these procedures for minors based on the evidence. All they're told is it's settled science. No, it fucking isn't. No, it isn't.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It isn't. And so thank you for saying that. That really means a lot to me. I'm really, you know, I sit here today for the kids. I do. I don't need to do this. You know, that I have my businesses. I do really well in the world. I'm, you know, out there. I don't need to argue with this ridiculous community, but I have to. I have to when they start beating up women. I have to when they start doing weird surgeries on little kids in the name of trans. I'm like, what? This is out of control. So, you know, I sit here really for the youth and for the younger generation that is getting sucked into something that is going to be so detrimental for the future of these young people. They're going to detransition. More than half, if not all of them, are going to be like, whoops, this wasn't. And it's not a whoops, people. Where were the adults? Where was the medical association? Where was the psychiatric association? I can keep going. And the pediatrics association is literally pushing transitioning of children. Are you kidding me? And every other country in the world is like, nope, we're not touching that. And here's America just like, yeah, ching, 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 ching. If you don't think it's monetary, it's monetary.
Well, that's why that's actually the next video I'm going to show. All right, so let's get into that. Trans activists will claim that bills banning medical transition for people under 18 demonstrates a war against trans people. Many who take this at face value, and I think some of them in our audience, well-meaning, because they just have not seen the information. They've never seen the kind of footage that may be driving this efforts, like doctors gleefully opining on how much money there is to be made in transitioning kids, doctors proposing using the precedent of taking children away from Christian Scientists or Jehovah's Witnesses parents for refusing, say, chemotherapy as a precedent for taking them away. For refusing to put them on puberty blockers. So I've put together a video, and I want people to know, because for the left, like Tennessee in particular, has become this focal point of, look at these bigots. What you don't know, because your media did not show you, is the videos, the first two videos you're going to see. These are both Vanderbilt University Hospital, which had a children's gender clinic. The first one is the doctor salivating about how much money these procedures make. The second one is an administrator from the hospital saying, if you have a conscientious objection to this, then don't work at Vanderbilt. That was when the governor of Tennessee and the legislature said, we have to investigate this. You never saw that part. Nope. The part your media showed you was them, the hospital. Oh my God, the bigots are coming after us. You watch this, you watch these videos, and I want you to come back and tell me that you don't think some action against this hospital was appropriate.
So female to male chest reconstruction can bring in $40,000. A patient just on routine hormone treatment, who I'm only seeing a few times a year, can bring in several $1,000s. So that requires a lot of visits and labs. It actually makes money for the hospital. Now these I got from the internet, but it's from the Philadelphia Center for Transgender Surgery, which does a lot of surgery for patients. And I just want to give you an idea of how much these bottom surgeries are making. And I think this has to be an underestimate. This is for a vaginoplasty. They're quoting roughly around $20,000 for a vaginoplasty, but that doesn't include your hospital stay. That doesn't include your post-op visits. That doesn't include your anesthesia, your OR. So I would think that this has to be a gross underestimate. I think that's just like the surgeon's piece of it, which anybody who's ever been in the hospital knows that that's like 10% of it. And then the female to male bottom surgeries, these are huge money makers. Again, I think this has to be an underestimate, that they're quoting around $20,000 for a phalloplasty. There's been different things that I've read that said it could be up to $100,000. Dr. Winokur, who's our surgeon, says that there's entire clinics where the entire clinic is supported just by their phalloplasties. And that is like a fraction of the surgeries that they're doing. These surgeries are labor intensive. They require a lot of follow-ups. They require a lot of OR time. And they make money. They make money for the hospital.
But I just want you to take home that saying that you're not going to do something because of your conscientious, because of your religious beliefs, is not without consequences. And it should not be without consequences. And I just want to put that out there. We are given enormous. If you don't want to do this kind of work, don't work at Vanderbilt.
All right, I'm sorry to break the flow, Russell, but I just want to clarify what she was talking about. She's saying you can't claim a religious exemption. You can't claim you are a conscientious objector to these processes and keep your job. We'll force you out anyway.
And then they released a statement saying that they permit people to act according to their conscience, and the brain dead libs don't see this. They don't see this. And honestly, I don't want to cast it that way because our own people haven't seen it, because they don't go to the media that would show this.
That's right.
They just don't go to the media that would show this. And this is what I'm trying to fight against here. We are leftists. We are leftists. Whatever the hell those people were in that video that we just showed you before this, they are not left. I don't know what that is. That is not any left that I recognize. That is not justice. This is not justice. You're being told that aligning yourself with these psychopaths and narcissists is a proper left position. So many people who watch this channel come out of the Bernie Sanders movement. I said it when we covered the Riley Gaines thing. You know how the media lies? You remember how in the Sanders campaign, they would say that people threw chairs at the Nevada convention and then show a clip of a wrestling match because they had no footage of it, right? The same thing is happening here. The same thing is being done to you. You're being manipulated the same way. And I brought the receipts for you. I brought the receipts.
Right
I'm
on.
showing you right here what they're not telling you.
That's right.
All right, we have more. Sorry, I didn't mean to break the flow. I just wanted to.
So
add
this is the doctor explaining how there's legal precedent for taking children away for not putting kids on puberty blockers. This is what she's talking about.
Don't work at Vanderbilt.
As we've seen, refusing puberty blocking treatment prevents immediate and intense psychological harm, and second, it causes lasting and irreversible physical harm. So we can compare the parents of transgender children opposed to physician-recommended treatment to naturalist parents. So parents who misuse traditional or mistrust traditional Western medicine. Regardless of whether these parents have good intentions, these children are often at risk of harm. So in various cases, the courts have ruled that naturalist parents are required to treat their children according to traditional principles of Western medicine. Not only that, but they're criminally liable if they don't do so. So arguably a similar case could be made with the parents of transgender children.
Okay, you understand? So when you see all of these bills popping up in all of these states, this is why. Because those videos, those are circulating outside of the media that leftists tend to prefer. Right? They are seeing those videos. It's scaring the living hell out of them. And they're saying, we better pass laws putting a stop to this because they're going to take away our kids for refusing to give them a dangerous and experimental treatment. They were telling you 10 minutes ago that puberty blockers had no long-term effects. The CDC just had to update its guidance after the New York Times, which I talked about this on the show at one point. Credit where credit is due. I would never have expected the New York Times to do some honest reporting like that, but they did. And what happened? These organizations came after them, demanded that they change their staff, and you know what? They told them to go get their fucking shine box.
They
I was
did.
very surprised. I was very surprised.
Me too. I was like, yeah, finally, New York Times. I mean, my God. But GLAAD came after them, right? And GLAAD is a really disgusting organization. They used to be good a long time ago, but now they're just about trans. They don't even represent gay and lesbian anymore. It's real everything in the LGBTQIA plus PP poo poo, whatever it is all about trans and queer. Nothing to do with gays and lesbians anymore.
Well, I saw you talk about this, how, you know, there was a group in England where the lesbians were not allowed to march because they had a sign saying we don't like penises.
That's right.
And I saw you talking about this, saying, you know, because if you're going to premise that trans women are women, you have to do this whole Orwellian 2 + 2 = 5 formulation. Therefore, if trans women are women, then you're transphobic if you won't date them, right? So, and I saw you talking about how, well, that's homophobic to impose that on lesbians.
That's right.
They're lesbians.
It is. That they don't want to date dudes. Sorry, you might look like a lady. I might look like a dude. Gay men don't want to date me. I'm not an actual physical intact male. That's not what they're attracted to. And who cares? I'm good with that. I don't really care. You know what I'm saying? If you don't want to date me, it's all good, right? Like, why would you want to date someone that doesn't want to date you? Or why would you want to force? So that whole thing, right, is very homophobic. You're forcing same-sex attracted people to date you, or else you're transphobic. What is that? I don't even know what that is.
Oh, it's a cult. That's cult thing.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So moving along and kind of keeping in the same vein, and this is something, again, because I bring this up to people on the left. They don't even know that other countries far to our left have stopped doing this.
Yeah, wow.
So I want to talk about that. Wow. You've spoken out strongly against the medical transition of children.
Yes.
Activists claim that the science is settled. But in countries that have done a meta-analysis of all available data, that means you take everything, you do an overall analysis based on it. Sweden has done that. Finland has done that. Most recently, the UK. They all came to the same conclusion, that the evidence is very weak and poor quality. So all these stats that you hear about suicide rates, about low rates of detransition, it's all based on very, very weak evidence. Certainly not evidence that would justify taking children and medicalizing them for the rest of their lives this way. For example, this is what scientists in Sweden, which, by the way, is the first country to ever recognize the right to legally change sex. Okay,
That's right.
This is a country way to our left, way to our left. They had this to say. This is what their board of scientists said in explaining why they were ending the practice, except in experimental laboratory conditions for children. Quote, several factors have pointed towards increased caution in offering hormonal and surgical treatment. Insufficient scientific evidence, a yet to be explained increase in the number of people being diagnosed, especially 13 to 17 years old and with registered sex female at birth, less uniform experience-based knowledge among participating experts than in 2015, and the documented, listen, and the documented prevalence of detransition. Understand? So when they tell you that's very rare, you can't go by Buck's day. What Buck had to go through to transition.
That's right.
You had to be pretty sure you were going to transition by then.
Right.
You can't compare that to what's happening now. So why are we claiming that all efforts to end these practices are right-wing when several countries far to our left have already done so? And how does this tie to the fact that we are the freak show of the Western world with a for-profit healthcare system?
Yeah.
They don't have an economic incentive.
That's right. We do. It's clear. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure that out. It's like actually right in front of our faces. But you're actually bringing up some great points in the fact that people aren't seeing these things. They're only seeing, right? So I always tell, because people will go, well, how come you follow so and so? They're at X, Y, and Z, or I'm like, you're looking at who I follow. Are you? That's how crazy it's gotten. They're actually looking to see who I'm around. I said, I follow everybody. I need to get all sides of stories. I need to see where everyone's coming from, what's saying over here. And you're stupid if you don't do that. You're literally living in a bubble, which is clearly what you're stating right here. People are living in this sort of bubble and what they're being fed from certain organizations. When Fox News is only feeding you this, CNN is only feeding you. You can actually look at both news stations and how they reported on Riley Gaines. You can see it is so profoundly there. CNN is all, it was a peaceful demonstration.
Did they report that?
Yes,
did they report that?
They did. And then Fox is like, she got slammed. They were saying all kinds of stuff to her. At least Fox was actually saying the truth. But that being said, we're not doing our due diligence on some level. We become, sort of lazy on some level and not willing to listen or see things. Because if people were more, thank you for showing all that also, because if people start to see more of that stuff, they'll start to understand what I'm saying. I'm not against people transitioning in any way, shape, or form. Some people say I'm pulling up the ladder. What? I'm securing the ladder. I'm bolting that ladder in so you don't get up that ladder and it falls back on you. I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to get to the top like I did. And right now that ladder is all over the place and you guys are being lied to. And, again, I'm bringing up detransitioners. They're, it's sad, but I'm going to say they're gold. They're gold for us because they're the ones who are going to stop all the madness.
Well, that's what I keep trying to explain to people because I'm going to show, I have a little video of you did an interview with Casey Miller.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show a little bit of that. I'm going to show her video that went kind of viral.
Yeah.
That's something else people really don't see. Yeah. And I want people to imagine what's going to happen when there's 100 of her. What's going to happen when there's 1,000? What's going to happen when there's 10,000? And that's why I'm trying to say, as a left movement, we don't want to be anywhere near the blast radius.
That's right.
There was a backlash for the satanic panic. That is going to look like a blip on the radar compared to what's coming when all of these kids get old enough to start saying, Why didn't the adults in my life stop
That's
me
right.
from doing this? Can you imagine? You're not going to be able to shut them all up.
Oh, no. It's going to be insane. Do you know that there's a Reddit group of over 40,000 detransition people? Now, I don't think all of them are detransition, but the fact that there's an actual Reddit group with 40,000 people, even if 100 of them are detransition, why are there 40,000 people in that group? What does that even mean?
Right. Well, because they're looking for somewhere that they can not say 2 + 2 = 5.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So, in your recent article for Broadview, which was actually what pointed us to you, you say this, quote, "One reason I'm so adamant about not medically transitioning children is that those tomboy girls I played with growing up who were just like me back then didn't turn out like me. Right. Some are gay women, some are straight, some feminized during or after puberty, some stayed masculine. Childhood gender nonconformity or even gender dysphoria aren't indications of any one adulthood. We can't just slap the label trans on a kid who's differently gendered and assume we know what path that kid should take for the rest of their life. In fact, several studies show that the vast majority of kids who are gender dysphoric in childhood resolve their distress by the end of puberty. And a majority of those grow up to be same-sex attracted. And from what I remember, that's about the 60 to 90% based on nine studies. So now you've spoken a lot about the fact that this movement, as we were just discussing, is generating a lot of regretful transitioners. So let's take a look at Casey Miller. First, we're going to show the video, a little bit of the video she did that went viral, and also a little bit of your interview with her. And also, I want the viewers to pay attention to her discussing how low the bar was for her to get testosterone.
All right, great. So we're going to play this video. Russ, can you just check the private chat while we play this? Cool.
Okay.
Out of my haircut because my hair was driving me nuts. And I shaved it because I'm tired of watching my hair thin out, and it's less distressing if I shave it. So when I talk about being too far gone, I don't really know what else to call it. This is what I mean. This is how deep my voice is. It's gotten deeper over time, and it's settled. This is what I mean by hair loss. And it just keeps getting worse. It keeps thinning. It keeps receding backwards. And I'm not exactly sure that's coming back. Those are the main things when I talk about being androgenized to a point of no return. I really don't see those being fixable. So that's when I talk about, just kind of staying how I am, regardless of how I feel. That's why, just because I don't really see me personally being able to come back from what's happened so far. So I hope that's a little explanatory, just to kind of give a little bit more of a,
appointment in September, second appointment in October, and then after those 2 appointments, I got the referral letter to a local LGBT health clinic, where in December I received hormones.
All right, I'm gonna my old brain, because that's I consider that fast tracking. So September is your first, and I'm not laughing like at
No, it's fine. It's ridiculous looking back at it.
The absurdity.
I thought it was slow at the time. But that's because I was 16. I wanted something and I wanted it yesterday. But now looking back, I'm like, oh my God, what on earth?
So this is something people in our space I don't think are seeing. This poor girl, because what they'll always lay on you the emotional blackmail of what are the consequences of not doing this? Well, look at the consequences of being wrong.
Wow.
Why aren't you asking? Why aren't you being asked that?
That's right. Why not? Why aren't they asking that? Because they know, and they don't want you to know. This is horrifying. That poor kid. Wow, 16. Are you kidding me? Has no breasts, literally bald, looks like a dude. Ain't never gonna go back to feminization unless he takes, or she, I'm sorry, takes some maybe other medication. But then now probably gonna have to be medicalized for the rest of their life, sterilized, won't have babies, right? 16. They don't make choices at 16 not to have babies, or these kinds of, they are even sexual relations. Some of this stuff, pardon me, it also affects your sexual space and orgasms and things like that are so important for humans. And We're just experimenting. I don't care what anybody says. We are experimenting on these young people.
Well, did you see that article? It was in the Free Press of that woman. She's a queer woman married to a trans man, and she quit working at the gender clinic she was at.
That's right.
Because the doctors admitted, they said, we're building the plane as we're flying it.
That's right.
And she was so hard, she just couldn't be a part of it anymore.
Thank
and
God
these are the
for her.
stories, again, people don't hear.
No, they don't. They shut her down. Sorry.
Yeah.
They shut her down. She's great. Something Reed, Jamie Reed. She's amazing. If anybody here are watching, please just Google her. They did a great interview with her, and she's really brave. She's a whistleblower. She's a true whistleblower.
Right. And I want you to ask yourselves, why haven't you heard of her?
That's right.
Why didn't you see that article? Why isn't she on our channels? Why isn't she on the Young Turks? Why don't you see her on the Majority Report? They don't talk to these people.
That's right.
All right. So one final question before we get to, I know you're all eager there. Okay. And a little video I want to show, because a lot of people are under the impression there's no scientific dissent. So at the now shuttered Tavistock Gender Clinic in England, about 1/3 of patients were also autistic. About 70% of current patients being treated for gender dysphoria have comorbidities like autism, bipolar disorder, depression. Now, activists will claim that these are the results of discrimination. Deborah So, a neuroscientist and the author of The End of Gender, which I would highly recommend you order after this episode, who specializes in human sexuality, has spoken out about this, about the fact that there is no scientific evidence for more than two genders, and about the consequences for scientists who attempt to speak out. So let's hear a little bit of her.
Right.
As I have, you'll hear the reasons as to why they have chosen to detransition, why they have regret about their decisions, in many cases having undergone medicalization. There's so many other issues that these young people are struggling with, whether it is being on the autism spectrum. They have, many of them, if not all I've spoken to, have a history of sexual trauma. They are not comfortable with their sexuality if they are gay. They may have anxiety, depression, and in some cases, as in Ryan's case, if it's a young woman who reaches puberty, is not comfortable in her body, she thinks that because she doesn't like being sexualized by society, that means that she's actually a man, or she's so-called non-binary, even though there are only two genders. Even for young women who don't like having a period, they believe that that means that they're actually a man. And I question, do children actually have the capacity to make lifelong permanent decisions about their bodies? And do they really understand what these interventions involve? I don't think they do. And I think we're doing a real disservice to young people, especially with this ideology. We see it coming into education. We see it being glorified in society, with the fact that legitimate experts cannot speak about the science, that legitimate studies cannot be done. Actual science that is correct is being suppressed, is being denied, is being called hateful. And so people are understandably terrified to talk about this. And if you are in the field, whether you're an academic, my reason for leaving academia is because I wasn't willing to stay quiet about this issue. If you do work within, say, academia, if you're a scientist, you cannot produce any research that goes against activist narratives, or they will completely destroy you.
So as a final question before we get to the audience, do you have a lot of people that you communicate with who do not agree with this, who are afraid to speak out?
Yes, daily. I get, my God, half the transsexual community, and probably the whole, too scared because they, can lose. They came after me. But I'm lucky that I'm a guy that owns my own businesses. You know what I mean? Like, I just am in a space that you can come after me and you can't cancel me. It's almost impossible. Well, it is impossible. They tried canceling me. They couldn't do it. So I'm in a good space, and I sort of I'm this guy in the front of this, kind of opening the door, hopefully letting some light in, and then the other people are going to come. But there's so many of us, but they're not comfortable speaking out. Everything Dr. So said is very true, especially in academia and especially in the medical space. I have lots of doctor friends. I have lots of academic friends, all exactly like her, and everyone's too scared to speak out.
Well, and this is why a lot of people will come when they say to me, but look, all of the scientists agree. I say, this is like you're coming to me in the middle of the Inquisition and saying, look, everyone is a Catholic.
Hilarious. No, you got it. I mean, it's so absurd and funny that it's just like we should all be crying, because it's like, what the common sense? right? Science is real. There's a reason we do those kinds. There's a reason that we have scientific, studies and these kinds of things, so that we can move forward in the world. We can find great ways to make ourselves healthy and move forward. This is not making us healthy. This is making us sicker. And so then I'm like, oh, they want to make us sicker.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the combination of factors where, like, yes, on one hand, of course, yeah, there is obviously an effort to suppress and silence voices like yours when it comes to these issues. But one of the reasons why I think you're so interesting to listen to and so important a voice is because, you speak to a lesson that I think a lot of us should have learned a long time ago and are still learning. We pointed to, because we are obviously political show, pardon me, we covered the midterms quite a bit, and I think the midterm elections were a very, very teachable moment for a lot of people who spend a lot of time online, as people in our audience do, as Russ and myself do, as you do, Buck. We all have YouTube shows, right? We're not dissing the online world, but I think when you spend too much time online, it's very easy to get sucked into these very dramatic and sensationalized sort of good versus evil narratives where there is no middle ground representing the ordinary person. And more than anything, Buck, what you represent to me in the time that I've been watching your stuff is you represent the ordinary person. You're an ordinary person. You aspire to be an ordinary person.
That's right.
And that's hugely important for people to understand. I brought the midterms into this because, look, for all the culture war shit that was raging in the midterms about CRT and trans bathrooms and sports and curriculum and this, what was the issue that won the day? The issue that won the day was the anti-reproductive rights SCOTUS call, because that motivated people to say, okay, what affects me? What affects my ability to live as an ordinary person? Without reproductive rights, we can't function as ordinary people. And so people went out and they voted based on that. It's not the drama that actually affects real people. And the reason I feel this is an important point to drive home is because you represent, you're a real person. You're a real person. Right.
Thank you.
And that is a very profound thing to be online, because online we don't get exposed to that a lot. No, it is. Online we get sucked into polarized narratives where we lose the plot. We lose sight of what's actually going on when we turn the smartphone off or close the laptop for the evening. There's a whole world out there that's just full of ordinary people trying to get by, and they act based on that. And I feel like that ordinary person is not represented in the, frantic pursuit of Riley Gaines down the hallway of San Francisco State University. Right. They're jumping in front of the cameras at the expense of ordinary people.
Wow, that's actually a really great thing you said, and I believe that's true. So that it's a clown world on some level. It's like, look at me, right? And that's why all of that social media stuff can be used in such a bad way, and why these kind of things are so important. We're using these tools in order to help move us forward. We're not using these tools as a narcissistic look at me, because we've become so crazily narcissistic on so many levels.
Right. Okay, so should we go to audience questions?
Sure.
Are we good?
I just want to make one more point. Sure. Final point. So I did watch your debate with Charlie Kirk. I think that's what you were referencing.
It was.
And okay, this is a big part of why it's so important to have you on here. Charlie Kirk, he disagreed with you really around pornography.
Oh yeah.
And so he's he has both religious and moral objections.
Yep.
But he was very polite.
Yep.
He called you a pleasant person.
Yep.
And I watched that and I said, if you got somebody as extreme on the left in that conversation, they'd be insulting him. They'd be attacking him. They'd be calling him scum. Like it would not have ended that way.
Nope.
They might have stormed off, right?
Yep.
So this is part of, my final word here before we get to the audience questions. We are going to drive people into the arms of Charlie Kirk because they look at Charlie Kirk and they see a guy behaving reasonably. willing to have a reasonable conversation. And then they see the video that I showed you of these people screaming at Riley Gaines. So who are they going to go to? We can't be those people. We cannot be those people. We have got to give a refuge to people like Buck so that they can come here instead of Buck's not a right winger.
No,
he has no place else to go. It's the same thing they do to, come on, man, all of our journalistic heroes have to go on Fox because they won't let them on.
That's
the other
right.
Channels. Greenwald, Taibbi, all these people.
I had to go on Fox.
Right, because they're not going to let you on MSNBC.
They're not. I've like, come on, let me come on and give you an opposing opinion. Crickets. I'm like, what? No. So now I got to go on Fox, and everyone's like, ew, dude, you're a right winger. I'm like, I'm not. That's what even makes it more powerful. Yep. I'm not, and that's why you should be scared of me, people. You keep calling me a right winger. I'm not. I'm an actual liberal, just so you know. And so I'm here because you are screwing up my space. And so if only Fox News is going to, and TPUSA and all those people, I have to have the conversation. You all know that. I cannot pass those up because not only that, I'm a bridge builder. I really do think of myself on some level as a bridge builder. And it's like, we got to live here together. We have to kind of find some common ground.
All right. Excellent.
And it should not be easier. This is to our audience. Listen. Doesn't all this sound really familiar from your experiences with the Democratic Party and with the Bernie campaign? You heard they're doing the same thing to him that they do to Greenwald, that they do to Taibbi. Same thing is being done to him. Mm-hmm. All right. You've been funneled into an ideological perspective. And I hope that from this conversation, you can open up your mind a little bit. Again, I would highly recommend this book, Deborah So, The End of Gender. And if you really want to geek out, I actually have a great book on the Satanic Panic. If you want to see, this is called Making Monsters by Richard Ofshe. If you want to see how the entire industry of psychiatry can line up behind a false theory presented as true, legal cases can be built around it, and have it all collapse in a house of cards, I would highly recommend reading that book to understand that you're in a similar moment right now.
Excellent.
All right, let's go to the audience. We have some questions here from 21 Grams of Soul. Thank you for the donation. Why is it that so many trans people do not have bottom surgery? If the reason for transition is dysphoria of not being the gender they believe, wouldn't having reproductive genitalia of that gender be more distressful?
It's an excellent question. Now, I can only speak, obviously, for myself and transsexual men. That's females becoming males. For myself, I did look into it, and I really did want to have the penis, and I felt like that was important for my whole sex change. But they didn't make a penis that was like a normal penis. They still don't, and so the cons outweighed the pros. And so I had to learn how to walk the world Now, that being said, moving forward, remember 30 years ago, I did this. They haven't even advanced in that surgery, and it's even gotten worse on some level. And so I have a friend named Scott Nugent, and you might know him. He was in that documentary by Matt Walsh, What is a Woman? And he's a transsexual man who had the bottom surgery, was what we call it. And they take a tendon out of your arm. They take a whole block of skin. They do all this incredible. It doesn't work. It's not a functioning penis. So why are you doing that? And many negative effects. Anyway, he got really sick from it. He's been dealing with it. The doctor got sued by 5 other people. That doctor lost his license in California, went to Texas, opened a new clinic, and is now operating on trans men there now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. That's why.
All right. Tusker, thank you for the $5. This is just a comment. Thank you, Buck and DD boys. Looking forward to a respectful and rational conversation. And don't forget to hit the like button. Yes, hit that like button and subscribe, folks.
Hopefully we fulfilled your wishes.
Hopefully we fulfilled them. Never sell out, boys. Sky's the limit. Thank you, T Money. Appreciate that.
But that was 200 watt. What is that? Was that what currency was that?
Oh, it is.
So
what is that?
I don't know what.
So somebody help us out in the chat. We got smart people here. Somebody's going to know what that is.
Smart people.
Smarter
Nicole,
than us.
thank you for the $5. Hope you got the Twitter tag. Thought you would laugh. What Twitter tag are you talking about? You're talking about Buck's tag? I'm not sure what that's in reference to, Nicole, but thank you for the $5. Here's a question. Long story short, thank you. Please ask Buck about being in the Cursed Female music video. How did they find Buck? A fan?
Wow, that's awesome that you asked that. Thanks. So yeah, back before I transitioned, I was I was an actual model. I was an actual female model, which is so bizarre. I mean, I'm actually writing my book now. Hopefully, you guys will all read it because it's just so insane. You won't even believe it. But I was a female model, and I went to Europe, and I traveled. And I was one of the very first androgynous models, and so I got hired to do this video for that was Porno for Pyros, and that's Perry Farrell.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and that video and that actual music video was on MTV, and they banned it because just look for it on YouTube or whatever, watch it, because it really is a very profound and very forward thinking video, but they didn't like the sort of subtext of it, so it got banned from MTV.
Huh.
Oh, interesting. The Y, by the way, people are saying that's the yen. That makes sense.
Yen.
That's what I thought it might be. Yeah. Courtney, thank you for the $5. Big thank you to Keaton Russell and Buck Angel for this show, ignoring the chat trolls. Buck is one of my favorite people. I didn't see many chat trolls, actually. It was 99%.
It seems like the Riley Gaines one was worse, actually.
Well, that's why we did
more of those.
That's part of why we did the Riley Gaines one first, because we figured we'd get rid of all the trolls there.
I actually like trolls. I do. I actually like trolls because they're just kind of funny and they just get crazy, right? They can't control themselves. Like, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, I don't mind them too much, but when they post so incessantly in the chat, it makes it hard for the other ones to follow. Yeah. Sorry, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick Donahue. I wondered how old Russell is when I heard him say to the lib at the Trump protest, "You have the Googles." I knew the motherfucker was old.
All right, so I was being funny. I wasn't actually.
No, you know how old this guy is? I will tell you how old this guy is. When he was putting together the video clips, when he was watching, when he was researching, he texted me saying his Norton antivirus is giving him problems about going on certain websites. I was like, "You have Norton? You got Norton? Since when is it?"
Right on.
You know, it's like one of those things. I just left it and I never canceled it. And you know, it's just there. Like people who still have AOL. You know,
True.
They just never got rid of it. So I to answer your question, I am 53, but the Google's thing was a joke. I was intentionally joking with those people.
So, Russ, I'm reading down these questions. If you can just follow the live chat and flag any more that come in. All right, because I'm just reading down the list here. Yeah. Ian asks for $1.99. Thank you, sir. What's the difference between transgender and transsexual? You got into that a little bit at the beginning, but I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, I'll address it real quick here because I think it's important for people who missed it. So a transsexual person is a medicalized person like myself who went through therapy and went through a system and gets diagnosed with gender dysphoria and then uses medical to transition to look like a male or a female. So we want to sort of assimilate into the world, and we want to walk the world as men and women. We do not want to walk the world as trans. So transgender now is an identity choice. So people who in the transgender community, if you see, they'll say, "I'm a trans man," or "I'm trans identified," or I don't want that. I don't want, that's just sort of my disorder, if that makes sense. So we want to assimilate into the world where they want to sort of live in this transgender space.
Right. I mean, that kind of speaks to what I was saying before about the goal of sort of integrating. Right.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Right on.
All right. Anthony, this guy here. My wife thought Keaton was the transgender. You know, I'm never going to be able to shave my beard again without thinking you assholes coming on here and giving me shit for it. I shave my beard. I have facial hair sometimes. I don't. Most of the times I have a little beard. It's 87 degrees in New York now. That's why I shaved my beard yesterday. It is so hot for April. It's mid-April. It's hot as hell in the room in now. So anyway, no, every time I shave my beard now, I think, I'm going to get shit for this in the chat. Because say I'm a baby face and stuff like that, but it's worth it. It's worth it to be comfortable. Having a beard in 87-degree weather right now.
That's why I stopped keeping a beard.
Yeah, too hot. Just too hot. In the fall and the winter,
especially you're out in California. It gets sweaty now.
Oh, no, it's gnarly. Are you kidding me? But I'm not, you know, I lived to get this beard, right? It was like the thing I wanted. Like, you're not taking my beard.
Well, when your conversion to Judaism is complete, you'll be all set. You already got
the beard, right, my friend.
Got the payas and everything.
Right. That's right. That's
right. Donald, grabbing by the pussy Trump, what made you get into porn? Yeah, we actually had that as a question for you, too, is what I figured somebody would ask it. Yeah.
No, it's a great question. So you know, I had a partner who was a professional dominatrix at the time, and so I was in that world there, right? And here in Los Angeles, we had like places where people would come and blah blah blah. And then I kind of was around the pornography stuff, and I saw what we used to call she-male porn or tranny porn. It was all women, men becoming women and doing trans women porn, and I didn't see anybody like me. And so I believe in sex. Sex really helped me sort of move forward in my own space, and it really helped me celebrate my body and not feel so disconnected from partners. So that being said, I decided I wanted to do stuff to sort of so on some level educate, which is ridiculous, but on some level just show the different type of body in pornography. It didn't exist before me, so I got into it and I liked it, and it was awesome. But it's not an easy place to be. People do not like pornography. They are very anti it, and there's a lot of stuff going on there. But today, I'm glad I did it. I don't do it anymore, but I am glad I did it. I think it did. Well, it did help me.
You were the first, weren't you? You were the first trans man in porn.
That's right. I was, yes.
Yeah, some people have a big hang up. I noticed in your Charlie Kirk debate, he would not let that go. Like went on for like 20 minutes.
He was blaming me for his addiction. I'm like, hold on here.
To me, that was like the least interesting part of the
I know.
Right. He wouldn't let it go and move on.
He wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
He was sweating too. He was so mad about the porn thing. I'm like, dude, man, you gotta chill here. It's okay. Like, take care of yourself. It's like, you want to ban porn? Well, then you're gonna have to ban alcohol because there's addicts who have alcohol.
Right.
Control yourself, dude. Like, get some help.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Tusker, thanks for the $20. Appreciate it. Buck, could the proliferation of trans self-identification be related to the general breakdown of local communities and the youth retreating to online spaces where standing out nets them clicks and attention?
Yeah, I'm going to say social contagion on some level. It has to be. There's no way that this upswing, and it's all mostly, young women, young girls who are really taking over this space. We know that's like 4,000% increase. You can't deny it's, some of this happening here and this desire to be a part of. We all were kids here. We were all youth, and we wanted to be. I was a punk rocker. I don't know about you guys, but we had to find that space, right, where we wanted to belong. That's why trans identity makes it able for them to do it. They don't have to do anything. All they have to do is put their pronouns in their bio and they're trans.
Yeah, is that something you tweeted about this recently, about how kids should not be encouraged to sort of detach from their parents over this issue, right?
That's right.
Because
right.
that once again just goes to what the goals of a movement are. Is it to break away from society, or is it to integrate into society to, achieve what we would all agree trans people deserve, which is equality within the, social setup here? But like this, because I heard that there was a progressive YouTuber taking, I think it was a phone call or an email question, or no, they were commenting on a Jordan Peterson conversation with some psychologist. I forget who she was, but anyway, they were making the point. They were just making, a very cliched point that people make, whereas like if a kid is gay and their parents aren't okay with it, it causes this huge rift. And if a person is trans, and their parents are not okay with it, it causes this huge break. And I think what your point seems to be in that tweet is like, let's not try and create wedges between kids and parents. Let's just nurture an environment of understanding.
That's right.
And compassion, because we want families to stay together. We don't want to create generations of people who left their families and hit the road because they wouldn't accept them. Well, like, that's not the goal. In some cases, that's inevitably going to happen, obviously.
Yes.
Right? You're not going to prevent
of course.
it. But that shouldn't be that shouldn't be the knee-jerk reaction.
No.
The reaction should be, let's try and work this out, because families are sort of units of social currency.
That's right.
It's important to keep them as strong as possible.
Oh my God, I'm totally all about family. The best thing that ever happened to me in my transition was getting back with my family. My family disowned me. I was a mess, you guys. I was homeless. I was just a total mess. Of course, they cut the tie. Good for them. I'm happy they did. I got my stuff together because of that. But now I have an incredible relationship with my parents, and they're amazing and beautiful. And they did the best they could do with me. I have that experience when I was a kid, and they let me be that tomboy. And all their friends were like, "That's your daughter, not your son." And my parents were like, whatever. Like, he wants, you know what I mean? But the fact that they're trying to take the kids away from the parents is sick and wrong. I'm like, no, we need to figure out how to get the parents and the kids to have the conversation, not say your parents hate you right off the bat.
Right.
Well,
right. Exactly. And you're a dad.
Yes,
yourself.
I'm a dad of a 10-year-old. Yes.
Yep.
There were a couple of subjects I knew we wouldn't have time for, but we kind of touched on them a little bit there.
Yeah.
Rapid onset gender dysphoria,
Wow.
where you're seeing among Buck mentioned a 4,000% increase in teenage girls. Now you want to see why you don't see a lot of studies about this. Littman, who coined the phrase rapid onset gender dysphoria, got viciously attacked.
That's right.
They haven't done a follow-up on her study until now.
That's right.
And since we're already canceled, I will pull this out for you. You hear a lot from the left about how the right is banning books, but there's quite a lot of effort to ban this book, Irreversible Damage, which I would also recommend. That covers rapid onset gender dysphoria, and to reject the idea that teenage girls, who, going back to the Salem witch trials, we know are uniquely prone to social contagion, anorexia, bulimia, to say when they were one of the reasons, I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, Buck, that you were such an experimental case is because it's a rare diagnosis in girls.
That's right.
And the fact that now you've got a majority of people identifying as trans being girls, a population that we know is prone to social contagion.
There you go.
How can we not discuss that? And this is why you will see trans activists attack this book, like just smear it. Read it for yourself. Read it for yourself and see if you think it's this anti-trans scream.
It's not
that they're gonna cut. No, it's very compassionate. I wouldn't read something like that. It would turn me off.
No, I can feel that from you, but I also want to say that I'm very, very good friends with Abigail, and also I'm in the last chapter of the book. So how is it transphobic? I'm actually in the book, and she actually did her research, right? But I'm that trans guy. I forgot. You're right.
You're the worst one.
Worst one. Ryan, thank you for the $10. Buck, no question. Just lots of appreciation for tonight's conversation. Love you guys. Love you too, Ryan. Ryan's a regular here. Thank you, Ryan, very much. Apocalyptic Optimist, only a few more here. Come down the home stretch. Rush, just keep your eye on the chat. See if any more last-minute ones come in, but we're almost done. Trans women and trans men are similar, but different. Biological women versus trans women issues are known. What if any, trans men versus biological men issues?
Okay, really none. Because this is all about women, you know that it's an attack on women. It literally, you got to look, if you're not seeing trans men and trans women being spoken in the same sort of space, then it's literally about trans women. And it's a misogynistic movement. It is. There's no doubt. So that being said, there's really nothing in the male space, except lately I've been seeing gay men are being forced to date trans men, and if you don't, you're you're transphobic. And I'm like, what? Like, they don't want to date you. Like, get off of it. What is wrong with you people? Like, why do you want somebody to date you so bad it doesn't want to date you? It's weird. That's the only thing I've kind of been seeing lately. But really, men don't feel threatened by people like me. There's no threat. I think the threat is trans women and women.
Yeah. Meteor Dreams, thank you for the $4.99. I agree with many of your points. Well, that's an improvement from last time, because last time Meteor Dreams had some pretty not so nice things to say to us, so thank you for that. But Riley Gaines is a transphobe showing up with Turning Points USA. Wasn't a coincidence. I'm a femme gay. I get a lot of hate from everyone.
Who else is going to host her? I'm sorry, Buck.
That's right. No. Go right ahead, my friend. And first off, I'm friends with Riley Gaines. She's not. So there. But I'm the bad tranny. I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, no. She is far from transphobic. I actually am friends with the people at TPUSA. So there's that. That being said, Riley Gaines is a woman who has every right to speak out about her space. If trans women have every right to speak out, so do women. So no, that is not trans. She has never said one bad thing about trans people. She said trans women are trans women. And women are women. That is not transphobic. That is reality and truth.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to sports, to me, the whole thing begs the question, well, then why not just cancel women's sports altogether?
I would die if they did
that. Why is there NCAA women's basketball and NCAA men's basketball?
Right. Exactly. Just make it all unisex.
Sports,
That's right.
Just why not?
Great.
It doesn't really make sense. EOK, thank you for the $4.99. Love you, Buck. We are in desperate need of truth tellers such as yourself. Thank you for the donation and for the comment. Laugh here says, thank you for the 20 pounds, my friend. I read some peer-reviewed scientific papers on the subject. I noticed non-dysphoric individuals who wanted to transition men to women being described as revealing strong narcissistic characteristics by psychiatrists.
Yeah, that might be AGP, I think. So you're familiar with autogynephilia,
Yes.
right? Which gets pushed back on, and then no one wants to talk about it, and it's fake. And, nope, it's not fake. It's an actual real thing. And so I would say that sounds to me a little bit more AGP type trans woman. And yeah, that's a lot of that going on. Today, what you see with these particular trans women is huge narcissistic behavior. They want you to bow down to them. They're not even making an effort to look like a woman. I mean, it's upsetting to me because if you want to be part of this, you need to make an effort to be part of it. You cannot walk into a woman's bathroom looking like me and saying you're a woman. You can't do that. But we're letting them do this as if it's completely normal. Nobody walks into the men, and if a woman, a female walked into the men's room, men don't care. They don't care. It's different. Men aren't threatened. Men are safe.
We're not physically threatened.
That's right. We're safe. Now, remember, I walked the world as a woman. I remember that. You have to look around a lot. You have to be, you're unsafe. You really are. You'll never know that because you never had to deal with that, but it's an actual real thing. And now as a man, there is nothing. I never look it back. You know what I mean? I'm just always like feeling safe in my space.
And just to quickly explain a little bit, that was another subject I decided we didn't have time to get into. Autogynephilia is men who are sexually aroused by the idea of having sex as women. Now, it has been hypothesized that part of the reason you have this absolutely berserk portion of the trans community that seems to have extremely misogynistic tendencies is because a lot of these people actually have autogynephilia rather than gender dysphoria, and they hate these women because they are not women.
That's right.
And particularly when these women push back on the idea that they're women, it interferes with their fantasy that they are women.
Okay, let's keep going. Just a few more. Thank you, Buck, for sticking around. If you need to,
no, it's all good. Yeah,
okay,
right on.
Tusker, thanks for the $5. The follow-up care visits and the money hospitals bring in as a result are what hospital business called the halo effect. Oh yeah, no, you go for a follow-up. Yeah, no, they take a mole off my leg. It's 6 months, 6 weeks. Oh, well, you should come for a follow-up 6 weeks later. Mole's still not there. That'll be $220 for the follow-up visit, right? Yeah.
Jeez, Tusker is a medical professional.
Yes.
I didn't know that was called the halo effect. It makes total sense. I mean, yeah, look at where just now you think these kids on puberty blockers aren't going to be medicalized for life? Are you kidding me? We all know what Lupron does. We all know it's destroying your body. And number one, forget about Lupron. Pausing puberty is impossible. They keep saying this thing. Oh, it's just a pause button. You can pick it. No, what happens to the year here? This year you took from this kid is never coming back. That's not a pause, people. That's a cutting out and putting over here. And then the kid changes their mind, and now they're all stunted and messed up for the rest of their life.
And just to explain for anyone who's just absorbed the talking points. They are going to tell you, well, it wasn't a problem until it was trans people. Straight people have been using it forever.
God.
They've been using it for precocious puberty. You're talking about like an 8-year-old who's all of a sudden having their period. That's right. They were using that when they say straight, they were never, this is an off-label use. It has never, ever been used this way.
That's right. Thank you for clarifying that. And that's, I get in that conversation with these idiots all the time. Well, they've been using it on cisgender people. I go, no, they have not. It's a very small population and it's precocious puberty. And it's very, very tiny. They have not been using it for that reason. These are healthy kids. Guess what, people? Puberty is healthy. I went through female puberty. Look at me. Do I look like a woman? Like, seriously, I went through female puberty.
All right. Catherine, thank you for the $9.99. Catherine, Buck, can you explain the difference in outcomes between your opinion and TRA's? As a rad femme interested in class politics, yours sound like a lullaby to the prior. Can you just tell us what TRA stands for in that context? I've never heard that.
That's trans rights activists.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but I consider them militants, to be honest with you. So the outcome between my opinion. So here I'm sitting here today. This is the outcome. I doubt that a TRA would come on your show. First off,
they'd come on to call us murderers.
Right. They would never have this conversation. They'd leave. They'd totally leave. They wouldn't. I've tried to do it with them myself. I've tried to open the path to having. They just can't handle it. They always They always leave. They just leave. So that being said, I think I'm willing, and people like me are willing to have this conversation and try to build a bridge with you. Or TRAs are just straight. That's it. There's no conversation. This is how it is. If you don't like it, you're a TERF and you're a transphobe.
Right. RBGH fam, thanks for the donation. Do you think adding the T to the LGB is detrimental to trans people because it turns into more of a political discrimination issue instead of a medical issue? That's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. And so, I'm teetering on with it. I'm having a hard time with this because I grew up in the LGBT community, and I do believe it was a community at one time. But I do think now some separation might help us all, because LGB is sexuality and T is gender, right? Or that. So I'm wondering how that's going to play out for the future of our community. But I think that there is discrimination here as well, because one is a medical issue, the other one isn't. And now we're calling it T/Q, which is the trans queer space, has overtaken the whole narrative. There is no LGBT anymore. It's all about T and Q.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't hear much about too many of those other sort of semi-adjacent social issues.
Nope.
You don't even hear the word feminism anymore.
That's
on
right.
the left. Misogyny, sexism. What happened to that? In 2010, you had a women's march. You had millions of women take to the streets and start marching all over the place because Donald Trump won the election.
Yep.
I don't hear about misogyny anymore. I don't hear anybody complaining about sexism anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
That makes you a TERF.
Yes,
I am a
right?
TERF. I'm a TERF.
Daryl, thank you for the donation.
Brother. I know what that currency is.
Right on.
Made it to a second live show. Thank you, Daryl. Glad to see Dobular didn't run away this time. What do you mean run away? Maybe he's referring to your time in India? I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't know what you
I'm
mean.
so
I
proud
never
of you
run
guys
away.
for this amazing
That's my
conversation.
problem.
Thank you. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Abiding 71, thanks for the super sticker. All right, I think that's everybody. Do we have anything else? Russell, did you catch any more? I think we're caught up, are we not?
That's it.
All right. Well, I guess that is our program. Buck, it was such a pleasure to meet you. It was such a great time. Thank you so much for making the time for us.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you guys. You're
Thank
super
you.
awesome guys. And I really appreciate, again, you opening up the conversation to your followers and people. And, these are the things that will help us get back to some form of normalcy. And I just want to leave your people with this. Look,
Absolutely.
I don't expect you to like me, and I don't expect you to agree with what I've chosen to do. All I ever want from people is just to be able to coexist with you. That's it. That's all I ever want. And that's all most trans people want. We just want to fix our disorder, move into the world, and create our own lives with our families and our businesses, just like you. So what you're seeing out there is not a representation of the transsexual community. And so I appreciate you all listening this evening, and I appreciate you being interested in understanding what's going on in this community. So thanks, you guys. It means a lot.
Well, integrate into our capitalist society by getting all your plugs in so people know where to support you.
Yeah.
One way you can become a good American is by selling your shit now.
It's so real, dude.
Yeah.
You can buy all my sex toys on buckangel.com. There you go.
And you have a
you have an
YouTube
Instagram
show, and you're on
Have a
YouTube.
You have
You have a great show on YouTube.
that's very interesting.
Oh, thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
I recommend everybody
thanks.
check it out. It's really interesting.
Thank you. Appreciate it, you
Absolutely.
guys. Yeah.
All right, Buck. Well, great to meet you. We'd love to talk to you again sometime. Thank
Let's
you so
do it.
much.
Okay. See you guys
Thank
later.
you very much, Buck.
All righty.
Bye.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Buck Angel, everybody. Well, that was fun. That was great. He was great.
Well, I knew he would be.
Yeah. No, I knew it would be
What's
too.
not to like? And our people, actually, you guys have been on your best behavior with our guest here in the living room. So
No,
I'm very proud of all of you.
No, I think the chat was great tonight. Like I said, I think doing that Riley Gaines thing before really worked because we just were able to sort of weed out the people who we knew
got
were
all
not
the
going to be
psychos
cool.
out.
Right. And, and I don't mean we banned them all. I just mean they went away. They
I
unsubbed.
banned those of you who are regulars. I did ban one person. I'm sure you can guess who, because they were supporting in our comments in the YouTube comment section. They were coming out and supporting violence against Riley Gaines. So I banned them. That's the line. That's the line.
I mean, exactly. And, YouTube does hold us somewhat responsible for our comment section and our chat. So we can't let all of that go. But other than that, no, we didn't force anybody out. And, I figured whoever wasn't interested would come back. But what he said there at the end, that says it all. And that is a variety on what I said earlier, which is, and I said it on the last show too, which is that most people in every community are not these combative, obsessive people who go online and eat, live, and breathe this stuff all day. Most people are just, like he said at the end there, they're just ordinary people. They just want to coexist with other people, right? And so I think that was a great note to end on. We have been not uploading many clips to the channel, so I just want to give a little program note. We will be off on Sunday because I am moving. This is my last show from the New Windsor, New York studio. And so the next time we see you will be Monday nights at 8 p.m. from my new upstate New York home. But, it's really kind of unfortunate that, this move happened this week because there was so much news that we did not get to cover.
So much.
Between the Elon Musk
and I'm so
BBC
busy
thing.
too. Like I didn't even have time to go do anything solo. I was, as I hope showed through, I spent a lot of time preparing for this.
Yes, I know
honestly,
some idiots say that Russell needs to do more research. I hope this satisfied you.
Yes, that's the problem. I haven't looked into this enough.
Right? Exactly.
Of anything we have done in the time that we've had DueDissidence as a brand, this was most important to me because nobody's doing this, and it's so important to see that what you're seeing out there that doesn't represent the community. It certainly doesn't represent the whole of it or most of it, or people like Buck. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And I think, as I said, there's a lot of information that you haven't gotten. So I hope that opens some eyes, opens some minds. I hope some of you will read some of the books that I mentioned. And we as a left movement need to defend these people, and we need to shut down the people who are trying to cancel a pioneer in this area for not towing the line.
Right. No, absolutely. So I'm going to be moving upstate. I'll be moving over the weekend. And so the next show will be Monday. We are guesting on our friend Kit's show on Hardlands Media on Monday morning. That'll be at 10 a.m. Eastern on his show. We are excited about that. That should be a fun time. But yeah, look, we did miss a few stories this week that we will cover on Monday. Like, even if we're a little bit late with them, like, I don't care. They're interesting stories. I want to talk about the Elon Musk versus the BBC reporter. I want to talk about Trump's interview with Tucker, specifically where he gets into the Nord Stream stuff. And I want to chime in on the Cenk Anna versus the shit-lib mafia, whatever the fuck they call themselves over there. That's somewhat related to, in substance at least, the talk that we had this evening. Those were three really hot stories that we just did not have the time. It's funny. This game, you have to be very disciplined and you have to put in the work, but you also have to be disciplined about when you just can't put in the work, right? Like, you also have to be disciplined as a human being to know there are certain weeks where, hey, look, man, we're off this week. Like, we can't do it. Not that we're off, but we couldn't organize the show. That's one of the reasons I was thankful to do the interview, because if I could turn the camera, I can't. I'm sitting in an empty room right now. Like, I've been just running myself ragged getting the house packed and everything. Russell has his spring break tours, and there are some times where you just have to say, like, hey, sorry, shop's closed for a few days. Like, when Jimmy Dore went on vacation, he was off the week that Kevin McCarthy forced the vote shit went down. And I'm thinking, man, if there's one guy who should be on the air every day while this is going on, it's Jimmy, because this proves a theory that he really pioneered in this space. But, look, God bless. The guy's like, no, listen, I got to be off this week. that's it. So, sometimes you just have to do that. Sometimes you just have to be disciplined to know when you can't do something. And it's frustrating because there was a lot that we wanted to cover. We'll be a little bit late with it, but I think that will make for good
Elon,
content anyway.
somebody's mentioning that, the Elon BBC thing.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Totally
that was
wanted
great.
to cover that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say for the first time, I'm feeling kind of burnt out as a tour guide because, you only have so much mental space and so much more is going here. So, in other words, become Patreon members so that we can do this full time because it's becoming a full-time gig.
It's becoming a full-time job. We're in that growing pain phase where we're now having to treat this as a full-time job without getting paid.
But we're not making full-time
money. So, yeah, if you sign up at Patreon. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm glad you mentioned that because I almost forgot to shout out the patrons here. So we want to play this scroll here for our Patreon supporters. Want to thank our new signups this week, Crone of Heresy, Martin R., Keith P., and Barry M. Thank you all very, very much. It really does help quite a bit. Like Russell said, the more people we get signed up at Patreon, the more super chats we get in, the more shows we can do. I mean, this week it wouldn't have mattered because this week I'm moving, so I'm not getting paid to move. I'm not getting paid to lug shit out to my van either. So that's not the issue with this. But in most cases, yeah, it is really a zero-sum thing. The more you can support us on these various platforms that we have, Patreon, Substack, obviously the super chats are fantastically helpful. Also, the less time we have to spend at our day jobs entertaining tourists and delivering people's groceries. So it really does help quite a bit, and it allows us to do shows like this. If we were doing this full time, we'd have figured out a way to do two. We'd have done Buck, and then we'd have done the Elon thing. But part timers that were forced to be here, we could only fit one in. But we will, like I said, cover those topics on Monday because I think they'll make for good content, even though it'll be a little late. Why not? And I'm sure some things will come up
there will be
between now and then. Yes. Also, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if there was anything else.
That's the good thing about the end times. There's always news.
Always news in the end times. Absolutely. We were on the most recent episode. Well, not the most recent episode because RBN, they do this full time. But we were on RBN. When were we on RBN? Monday? Man, that seems like forever ago. And it was only 3 days.
It was Monday.
That's how you know I haven't been sleeping much. But for those who missed that stream, that was a great time. You can go back and check that out. And I believe they're dropping clips from that as well. Yeah, that was great fun. And we hope to have them on soon.
That was honestly, I was such a fanboy because this is true. Look, one day maybe we'll talk about it. I never really mentioned it too much, but I quit smoking during the pandemic and I had a total psychological meltdown and Keaton had to deal with it. So I went and stayed at a friend's house and she was really good about getting me back on my feet. She was like, "What do you want to do?" And I swear to God, one of the things I said was like, man, if we really build up the channel, I'd like to hang out with those Fred Hampton leftist guys, man. That's the space I want to be in. So it was pretty cool to actually be there.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Sabby Sabs is going to be guesting with us on the 23rd Sunday show. So a week from this Sunday, she'll be sitting in with us for that episode. So we are looking forward to that. But yeah, this will be the last you see of us until Monday. So no show Sunday, folks. No show on Sunday. We want to make sure all our regulars hear that because I know we are very, very thankful for the audience who makes time for us and make sure they're at their laptop or at their phone or tablet, whatever TV at the times they're on. We don't want to let you down in that way. There's no worse feeling than thinking your favorite TV show is on and you sit and you realize, oh, rerun this week. God damn it.
$2 cover charge only, folks.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we don't want to let you guys down. So please remember, no show Sunday. We will be on Hardlands Media Monday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 Central. He's in Chicago. And then we will be on that evening at 8 p.m. from my new upstate New York studio home. And I believe that is everything we have for the evening, is it not?
I believe so.
No, there was one more thing I wanted to mention. There was actually one more thing I wanted to mention. So I swore I would. I said I didn't think I would figure out Substack notes, but actually I looked at Substack notes and it actually is pretty cool. So if you're on Substack, if you follow us on Substack, and you should, DueDissidence.substack.com. I'm going to put that link in the chat right here. You can go on Substack Notes, and their feature is pretty cool. Although I do have to say, I mean, as much as Musk was an absolute dick for taking out his anger on Matt Taibbi over that, it is true that Substack Notes pretty much did copy Twitter exactly. I mean, it is basically exactly Twitter. Like, the logos are the same, the retweets and the comments are the same. Like, it looks exactly the same as Twitter.
Oh, okay.
It is an absolute knockoff of Twitter. But it is cool. Like, Aaron Mate's using it. Taibbi's obviously using it. Andrew Sullivan is on there. It's this, like, new community that's building up amongst all these Substack creators and Substack readers, which is a really great space over there.
That's
it's
why
a really
that was
great
such
forum.
That's why that was such a dumb thing for him to do.
Right, because you could have had integration there. You didn't have to make it this thing, this hostile thing. But yeah, it is a cool feature. So if you're on Substack, check out the notes feature. If you're not on Substack, join us on Substack. You can join as a paid subscriber. That's very helpful. But you can also join as a free subscriber. Substack basically means you're on our newsletter email list. So you'll get advance email notifications of any upcoming live stream, or if we do a video that's unique to Substack or a clip that's not part of live stream. We also put all of our live streams up as audio podcasts, and we go through Substack for that. Articles. One of our patrons and our friends over in Ireland, Jack Carolyn, recently wrote an article about Joe Biden's trip over there. And so we were able to put that out. I thought that was a good piece and good fan service to our Irish fan base, because I don't know if you noticed, folks.
We have a large Irish fan base.
Yes, we said in our last episode, we're top 100 news and politics podcasts in Ireland. How do you like that?
We're gonna that's why we're gonna do a reading of Waiting for Godot on the
exactly.
next episode.
Indeed. All right. I believe that's everything for the night, is it not?
I believe so.
All right.
So.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed that. We hope you guys got something out of that. It was a great conversation. Buck is a lot of fun, and he's just, he strikes me as just a very genuine and good person, and so it was a great talk.
It was so warm and intelligent, and just a good. Even Charlie Kirk liked him.
Even Charlie Kirk liked him. Yeah,
in spite of his history with porn.
Exactly.
Which Charlie Kirk seems a little strangely obsessed with. Whenever somebody's that obsessed with something, they're doing it.
Well, I mean, that's a different conversation. We're not going to start that now, but yeah, generally, yes, you're right about that. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Hit that like button on the way out. Hit that subscribe button if you're new here. We will see you Monday night, 8 p.m. No show Sunday, folks. Monday night at 8 p.m. Till then, be safe, be well.
Courage, friends.
Please clap.